Here. I should really cut away these starts when I'm testing everything. I should really cut away. There we go. Make sure everyone knows I'm going live. There we go. And disable all mods. This is my filthy cheat mod here that I'm using to test various pretender designs. It's just a mod that I've whipped up that gives any given pretender 412 paths so I can test different blesses. But we're gonna have that off. So, for those unaware, Mergula is hosting a blitz for the late age next Sunday. And I have, of course, immediately signed up. So now I need to spend some time thinking about which nation I want to play. Lemuria and Relaya are banned in this game, so neither of those would be an option, but I wouldn't play Lemuria anyway because I played them recently in another game. So instead, I think I'm going to be looking at Ulm, Man, Atlantis, and possibly Vettiheim. There they are. And I'll go through these one by one and see what I have for thoughts about them. So let's start with Man, top of the list. Man is a nation of humans. You could even say that it's the most human of all the human nations, in that it just relies on human troops, human mages, and it doesn't have a lot of heavy non-human summons. Late Age Man especially is a drain nation, so they have mundane researchers in their magisters. And they're also masons, so they get access to good citadels. And for their troops, they have decent heavy cavalry, sacreds with a melee and ranged weapon, who are also stealthy with great protection and just overall pretty good stats, above average. Expensive on both resources and recruitment points though. And then they also have regular melee infantry, who are very defensible with a crossbow as well. So Late Age Man is one of the heaviest ranged nations in the game, because they have both their longbows and regular crossbowmen, as well as their melee troops, who also get crossbows. So they can really lay down a withering hail of fire with their regular troops. And then you have your chaff with the heavy axemen and long spears. Research-wise and spell-wise, you have the Magister Arcane, Mundane Researcher. Yeah, not great path access or good cross path, honestly. Big point is they have astrals, so they can enter communions. Same goes for the regular Magisters. 25% of them is going to be able to enter communions as slaves. Otherwise, these are just researchers and masons. And then you have the Holy Twos, Holy Ones, who are Inquisitors, and Judges, who are low chance to be magical. They have a patrol bonus and mundane researcher. Not great, but you can recruit them pretty much anywhere. So for Man, I think you can either play into maximum scales to recruit a pretty good infantry, or you can go with a decently heavy bless for their sacreds. And their starting army is kind of bad, so I think I'm looking at a monster chassis, possibly a Titan, for good early expansion. And the Thrice-Horn Boar is a very solid chassis. It's a Trampler that has built-in Berserk, starts with Earth and Nature, important for self buffs, decent starting protection and hit points. Can't go wrong with that. Otherwise, all three dragons don't need much to start expanding out of the box with their Dragonfire Breath Attack. Minimum 2 squares beam, big AoE, kills a lot of stuff. Also fear rating on them. And of course, the Earth Snake. The reason for the Earth Snake being good is that it has 20 starting protection, built-in recuperation, fear rating, and Earth access. So this thing is already super tanky and it can fear enemies to death. So think I'd probably do an awake boar. Want nature 2 so we can cast personal regen. And I'll want... I can do Iron Skin with Earth 1, so let's see what we want for scales first. Since we're a Drain Research Nation, we can just go Drain 3 without any penalty at all. And it is a blitz, so I value luck a bit lower, because it's not going to be a super long game. And we'll do heat for extra points as well. Decent Dominion. And then probably want growth, order, and productivity so I can recruit all my troops. Pretty heavy scales already. Let's add in some fire and shock resist. Because otherwise a single lightning mage is going to just ruin your day. If you don't have any form of elemental resistances in a multiplayer, you're just asking to be evocation to absolute hell. And then we'll use the last of our points. One more nature. Let's do 2 more so I can get a blessing and dump a candle. So I can also fit in poison resist, low light vision. 10. Let's do 15. So this pretender doesn't do much at all. Pretty much nothing for my secrets. The idea behind this is to just lean heavily into recruiting knights and crossbowmen to do the actual fighting and use the Thrice-Horned Boar for early expansion. Otherwise, my other idea, let's see, man, is to do a rainbow. And they have access to the Great Sorceress. Starts with air and death access. 110 points, not very cheap, but also a bit more durable than other rainbow chassis. And then we have Magister Supreme that only costs 60 points because we have a national discount, and that's fantastic for an Archmage. Very cheap point cost. It's also a Mundane Researcher and a Mason, so that is probably the best choice here. Now, the Sacred we have is the Warden. A size 2, pretty good unit, heavy infantry. So we'll want to build a bless with that in mind. So let's see what we can fit in a general rainbow bless. And dump down to there, take dormant. We can take misfortune, order, productivity, growth. Let's go imprisoned even, I think. So I don't think we're going to need to go for any incarnate blesses to make these troops work. Let's go heat for some extra points. Now, as I said earlier, resistances really are king in multiplayer. Having resistances could not matter at all a lot of the time, but if you don't have them, someone is going to notice and ruin your day with big evocations. Easiest way to pick up resistances is usually fire and shock resist, but if we're going imprisoned, that means we're not going to have the incarnate for a while. We could go dormant, however, and shave off some points by losing a candle. Let's see what we can build with that. I can grab attack skill, swiftness. Combat speed I don't care about so much as the +1 defense, always good. And here it's a big toss-up. Cold resistance matters a lot if a nation like Vettiheim is in the game, or Atlantis, and it doesn't matter at all if none of the big cold nations of the late age are in the game, whereas defense skill will almost always be useful. But if we're trying to insulate us against as many threats as possible, I think cold resist is the way to go. Oh, we can't even afford fire and shock resist, so never mind. Back to the start, go imprisoned. In that case, let's do like this. Because then we can take major fire resist and attack skill and major shock resist and swiftness. Actually, I don't value swiftness that much, so let's do this instead to save on points. Cold resist and Here the toss-up is between Reconstruction for better mage communions and Strength of the Earth for hitting harder. And our Sacreds have a two-handed weapon, so they're pretty good with getting more strength, especially if we're already beefing up with attack skill. And then we'll do one more Astral so we can get magic weapons. And we'll leave the Death on 3 and just pick up some Undying. Can't go wrong with Undying. It's essentially just 6 more HP if you're taking 3 Undying. They're going to die afterwards anyway if you don't have regeneration, but it gives us some extra staying power. Nothing wrong with that. And then for nature, we'll definitely want major poison resist and low light vision. Low light vision is a, I think, underrated bless. It means that if you're fighting in a cave or underwater, you don't get absolutely fucked by there being darkness. Same if someone casts darkness on the battlefield or puts up utter dark. It just insulates you against darkness, completely destroying your sacred unit's ability to fight. And Strength of the Flesh for blood. And then we even have some points left over. So let's see what we can do with that. We can put 2 more in a path. Or go a bit heavier on the Dominion so we can recruit more Sacreds. None of this is Incarnate, so we don't need our Pretender to be online for this. So this is a pretty defensive Rainbow Bless. It gets attack skill and strength +4 basically. Otherwise it's just resistances and undying and magic weapons to let us hit ethereals. And I think that the Wardens are sturdy enough to warrant it. They can hold out on their own, and the extra strength will let them really cleave through things with their greatswords. The big threat with a bless like this on them is that they don't have any shields, and this is late age. Crossbows are super common, so I'm going to need to put arrow fodder in front of them with this build. So we'll put that one in the bank as well. So those are the 2 pretenders for man I would consider. The other nation I would consider for a late age blitz, because I personally like them, is Ulm. And that's because I think late age Ulm is super cool. Just looking at this screen, they don't really look like much. You have Black Templars, heavy cavalry that are sacred, extremely good stats, but also they cost 73 resources and 46 recruitment points. These are prohibitively expensive. You cannot make a build around these. Even if you go full order production and growth, you can't afford to recruit more than maybe 5 or 6 of these a turn at most. And more likely you're just going to be getting 4 with this resource cost. So Black Templars are nice to pad out your expansion with maybe 3 or 4 in a party, but it's a trap to try to go for them. Ghoul Guardians is an interesting unit because it's a recruitable undead, and they have a castle defense bonus. So these are, and you can see, again, super expensive on resources and recruitment points. But they come with a magic halberd with Bane of Heresy. That's an AoE attack with fatigue against Sacreds. So these are very good for if you're getting rushed by Sacreds or you need some elite troops to prop up walls and hold the fortress. And then you have your main meat of your infantry, the Zweihander. 21 protection, 2-handers, hitting super hard with decent attack skill. These are just what you're going to be using to chop up enemy troops. Very strong units. And then the last troop of big note is the Ranger. And I think these are standouts in the late age where crossbows are common, because not only do they have a crossbow, they have 12 precision, which is above average, and they have an axe attack with good damage. So even if these get engaged in melee, they will still be able to do a lot of damage before going down. And they're stealthy, so you can pull off some elf-like raiding with them. Also pretty cheap by Ulm standards. Then you have your arrow catchers. Nothing special to say about these. And halberdiers and pikeneers, I wouldn't consider making these the main line of any army. These are just to fill out your ranks, and villains that I would never ever recruit. You could use them to patrol to do blood hunting with, but you can get free spawn for that, which we will get to later. For commanders, you have your recruit anywhere fortune tellers, which have decently good random paths, always astral, so you can always shove them in a communion, and fortune tellers. Oh, sorry, these are not recruit anywhere. These are capital only. Yeah. Pretty good. If you spread these fortune tellers out a bit, you can prevent a lot of negative events, even if you're going Misfortune 3. And then Hawkmeister, this is your recruitable thug chassis with decent leadership. Inquisitor and Combat Caster. Combat Caster is very cool, because that means you can pull off a bunch of interesting combat tricks with spellcasting and melee at the same time. Ghoul Commander is what you use to cart undead around, nothing more to say about him. And the Wolf Herd is why you don't want to recruit villains. Because these are recruitment point 1, you can recruit 3 of them per turn, and they can all summon 2 wolves per turn each. So you get a bunch of these recruited in your capital and just have them summoning wolves all game, and you can have those wolves patrol for your blood hunters. And they're also extra good at leading wolves. Don't use the wolves for combat, they're going to die in HP throughout the rest of your troops. Black Priests, just like in the previous ages, are just sacred earth casters with some cross paths. They will be casting Iron Blizzard and Iron Darts, and they have a Forge bonus, so they're good at making items. Nothing much to say about those. Members of the second tier are going to be your main blood hunters. Yep. Most of them are going to be blood 1. You can get the occasional blood 2, but don't count on it. These are going to be your blood hunters until you get vampires online. And they're pretty good at it. The Astral means they can always enter communions. Crosspaths means they can be useful in communions. And the blood, well, blood hunting. Also stealthy and spy. And then the illuminated one is just your researcher and communion fodder. Nothing else. Black Acolyte is a priest inquisitor, good at removing enemy dominion. Can become an earthcaster for Iron Darts, don't count on it. And then just your army leaders. So let me bring up the inspector and show you why Ulm is cool. That doesn't show up on the nation screen. Let's see here. Late age. Late age Ulm. So, you get a group of unique summons that come from the spell Sanguine Heritage, which is a blood 0 spell, so you start the game with access to it. It needs 3 blood and 3 death, so as you might have noticed from our spellcasters, none of them can cast this spell natively. The best we're going to get is blood 2 and death 1. So if you want to be able to access this spell, you need to put blood 3, death 3 on your commander, or be ready to do some very deep diving into diversity summons. And each time you cast this spell, you get one of several unique vampire counts summoned to your side. For only 44 blood slaves, whereas normally a vampire lord what's the spell called? Goodness me, I can never remember this. It's called... Well, apparently I'm blind or something because I can't find it. But anyway, normally to get vampires you need to go very deep into blood. Ah, here we go. With Curse of Blood, costing 77 blood slaves at blood 7, 3 blood 4 death to get vampire lords. This is the strength of Sanguine Heritage, is that you start with it unlocked and it needs almost half the blood slaves regularly needed to summon Vampire Lords. And while the counts you get aren't quite as strong as Vampire Lords, they are still immortal vampire commanders, each of them with unique traits. So this first one you get is your standard Death 2 Blood 2 with a short sword. This could probably be considered your average vampire. All of them share some traits, being that they regenerate, they're weak to fire, strong against cold and poison, they have perfect dark vision, stealthy, invulnerable 25, so they're already very good province defense raiders. They revive in 1 month if killed, so they're very quick to revive. And they also cannot ever go underwater or cross rivers. They will die instantly if they're ever in water, and they just cannot move across rivers. And they will also free spawn thralls, which are, not great. And they fly. So, fantastic raiders, great blood hunters. Then you have this female blood countess. She has a name, it just doesn't show up on the inspector here. She has blood 3, no death. So she's the great blood hunter of them. Then you have the Vivisectionist, blood 2, death 2, and he, I believe, gets a... he gets Adept Researcher 8, so this is your research vampire. I don't think I would use him for research, because vampires are so much more useful as thugs. And you have the other Countess, who is a Seducer, death 1, blood 2. Morale versus 9, not a very strong seducer, but she is immortal, so you can just keep trying over and over until you succeed. And then you have the Blood Graph, which is amazing. This is your premier vampire thug. He has 20% regen, and he comes kitted out with 3 attacks and extremely high protection. And again, respawns in 1 month. And then you have your Fear, built-in Fear 8, also a very good vampire raider. There's one more that has a greatsword as well, similar to the Blood Graph, that is also a very good thug. So you have these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 unique vampire summons with Ulm, which is the big strength of the nation. That they can really break into blood early and do a lot of cool things with it. So the question is, how do we build to facilitate that? The most obvious answer is the Vampire Queen. Pretty expensive, but like all the other vampires, immortal with 1 month, so you can use her as a thug right out of the gate. Slash blunt resist, invulnerable, regeneration, flying, all the good stuff. Pretty expensive though, 230 points at Dominion 1. So I don't think it's ever worth going awake with this pretender. You're not going to have the blood slaves to start summoning your vampires until towards the end of year 1 anyway. So you might as well just wake up then and start summoning them when you have the slaves. And you don't need to do more than blood 3, death 3 to summon them, so why should you? You do, unlike Middle-Age Home, care about magic, so going Drain is not great because your researchers are not very strong. You're really going to be falling behind in research if you take Drain on this nation. And likewise, if you want to be recruiting your spy handlers, you're going to need resources out of a zoo, so production is king. Order Turmoil, you could dump into some Turmoil, because you could be recruiting rangers and spy handlers with fairly low recruitment points. Same with the infantry, and not so much with the ghouls. So you could go Turmoil to save some points. And I would definitely recommend going cold anyway, because vampires and other undead love cold. And always, growth is a great thing to have on a blood hunter nation. That does leave us with some points to spare. So, we can go luck 2. keep us at Dominion 6. We don't care super much about high Dominion scales, since we're not going to be recruiting Sacreds. On the other hand, we're going pretty heavily into scale, so we want to spread our wonderful Dominion. Other thing we could do is go Misfortune and Full Order to max out those recruitment points. I think I prefer this. We have excellent national troops. We're wanting to build a bunch of forts and recruit more of those national troops. Yeah, something like this, I think. On the other hand, we could also just put one more point in Death and Blood to get some blessing at least for our knights. Probably just Blood Surge and a bunch of Undying, really. There is some merit in this. Your knights are pretty strong, and being able to get a bunch of buffs when you kill something with them. Is it worth losing a candle? Probably. Yeah, I think it is. So that's the first way I'd build Ulm. The second way... Let's see, late age Ulm. The second way would probably be to go a little bit more into a blessing to make use of parties of Black Knights. But not with a Vampire Queen, because she is very overpriced for what she does. Instead, something like the Fountain of Blood. Production, dump Cold, dump Luck, dump Turmoil. Dormant. And then I'd probably do something like this. Yeah, Stygian, and then can I fit Fortitude in? Yes, I can. So if I was going for a bless for the knights, it would probably be something like this. It's not a very extensive bless, and it's very defensive. This will not be to kill enemy armies, but to send 2 or 3 or 4 knights together with a commander off on their own to raid enemy provinces. Because with this, they're almost immortal to regular PD. You can imagine with... yeah, the lack of resistance does hurt. And I just realized that the Stygian Flesh is almost useless on them because they already have very good protection. So I want to fit in something other than Stygian Flesh here. Probably something like this instead. Fit in some poison resist. Low light version. And this is probably better than Stygian. Yeah, the lack of resistances hurts, but the idea is to send out these in groups of 3 or 4 on their own. And if the enemy is sending a bunch of big evocations after them, they are being way more wasteful with mage turns than we are being with our sacreds. And these are, after all, the only units that are going to be benefiting from this bless, together with the Hochmeisters, but they're just there to lead the Black Templars. So the idea is just to have the Black Templars be really hard to take down for basically any number of mundane troops, and have them cleave through them and do a bunch of deep raiding. I don't like this way of playing. You don't get as good scales, and doesn't benefit as hard. Yes, even. I think Lowlight is worth it. It only costs 1 bless point, and you negate half the disadvantage of fighting in darkness. So, if you have an Agartha on any enemy side, you can fight in their cave provinces without being shit. If you send your troops underwater with a Manual of Water Breathing, you can do that without losing most of your combat power. Or if someone puts up Utter Dark or just casts Darkness on a battlefield, it doesn't completely cripple your Sacreds. And for just 1 blessing point, definitely worth it. Definitely more worth it than 1 point of resilience anyway. But all that said, I don't like this way of playing Late Age Ulm. I prefer to have better scales so I can go deeper into blood hunting and really dive into blood economy while using the national troops. So I'm just gonna scrap this god. Yeah, it is. The deep water underwater is. Let's see. Third on my list was Vettiheim, which is a very unique nation in that I think it's the only nation that's primarily size 1 units. They have a standard roster of Vetti, goblins basically, who are all shitty stats, low strength, low defenses, low everything basically, but size 1, so you can really pack them together and they're super cheap to recruit, so you can spam them like crazy. Which means that Vettiheim can spam archers and crossbowmen very handily. For your actual troops, I would disregard the light Vetti infantry, but if you can recruit them in all woods, not great. Spearmen, good length 3 weapons on a size 1 unit, that's a lot of repel checks. Actually works out decently, and they have a decent attack and defense skill. More importantly, your Vetti Berserkers have a Berserk rating of 2 and a 2-handed battle axe that deals 21 damage. These things are way more killy than any size 1 unit deserves to be. They can chop up enemy infantry. Woof. Underestimate these and you are going to lose a lot of troops to them. Downside, they die really easily to enemy AoE. And then you have Wolf Riders, recruit anywhere, basically just size 2 cavalry raiders. They have a spear, 2 attacks each, so they're still getting 6 attacks per square. And then the better variant, the Wolf Brother, which 16 defense skill. These can hold up a front line very, very well. And they have a map move of 18, so they can go pretty far. And now you have the real reason to play this nation, the Renvetti. This is one of the best sacreds in the game. Definitely on my top 10 list. This is a size 1 unit with the hit points of a regular human and above average stats for a human soldier. You pack 6 of these to a square and all 6 of them have a high damage magic attack and a chill aura and ice protection. So if these guys are fighting in cold 3, you're going to be sitting at 17, 19, 21, no sorry, protection. 20 protection. So even without a blessing, these guys are already absurdly strong. Oh, they have cold power too, so 3 more strength. These are the reason that you play Vettiheim. These are fantastic sacreds. And then you have Moose Riders, don't use these, trash garbage. And your Jotun troops, which they have a siege bonus. About the only reason I would use these is to siege down castles quickly. Possibly to be an HP sponge in the backline to prevent an HP rout. Yeah. And then spellcasting wise, you have your Vetti Hags, super cheap researchers, not very good researchers mind you, but they get 1 path, 5 research, only cost 40 gold, and 32 gold upkeep a year. They may be inept researchers, but they're cheap. Recruit them. Stuff them in a communion if you get blood or astral. It works. And then your Jotun Gigias, your main spellcasters and communion leaders, because they get very good path access. These enable Vettiheim to do turbo communions. If you slap a bunch of these in a communion and give them regeneration, they can just keep casting spells while super fatigued out because they keep regenerating. And they're just solid spellcasters all around. You should always be recruiting these in your capital when you can. Even if they are a bit expensive. At least their upkeep is only 116. And you also have these Dim Vetti Assassins. I don't think they're worth it because they're 9 HP assassins with 4 protection. They're going to die most likely. Hopefully they can poison something before they die. I don't think it's a good investment. And then your Vetti Gigia, your other researchers that you recruit all over the place. who also enter communions with their astral and blood randoms, and they bring a bit more paths to the table to make the communion more valuable. So you recruit these where you can't recruit your Jotun, Gigas or Veti Hags. And then you have your 2 raid leaders and your regular army leader. Nothing special about them. So, since we have excellent sacreds, we want to build an excellent bless for our excellent sacreds. And there's a couple of ways we can do this. The monsters, we disregard. This nation expands excellently. They don't need any help with taking down independence. So instead, we'll be looking at some form of rainbow or a stationary. Possibly the bug mummy, he's a special case, I'll get to him later. So, Monolith is a very good immobile pretender. I like him a lot of people like him a lot, and for good reason. He gets 3 paths, Dominion 4 right out of the gate, and it's only 40 to get new magic paths. On top of that, it's almost unkillable. Look at that, 28 protection. Someone rushes your capital, this thing can hold out all on its own against most threats. So, since this is a size 1 nation, there is a special case to be made for Blood Bond, which distributes all incoming damage across the nearest 5 tiles. Which, in the case of Vettiheim, means that it's going to be 6 units per tile in 5 tiles. That's 6 times 5, 30 units, who are all going to be spreading damage out between them. That's amazing. That means that there's almost no damage at all being actually taken. And then, of course, you pad in that with regeneration, which is good not only for your sacreds with actually 10 hit points, but also your Jotun Gigias, who become all that much more efficient in communions with regeneration on them. And you definitely want fire and shock resist on this nation. You don't care about cold resist, you already have cold resist built into your troops, but fire and shock resist is a must. If you don't have this, you're going to get obliterated by fireballs and lightning bolts that hit like 18 of your troops each. Bad trade for you, to say the least. And Astral, can do some stuff with Astral. If you really want to go hard on the Bless, you could give yourself a Luck Bless. Quite expensive, but this makes your troops very hard to kill. Downside is that your Sacreds are pretty heavy on recruitment points, so you don't want to drop Order Scales, but you can drop Sloth, Death, and even, yeah, you have to go pretty far into Hellbless to afford Luck. This, I think, isn't terrible, but you're going to have to be ready for doing some very hard rushing to make a build like this work. And I don't think it's the best build you can go with, so let's not do that. We're not going to pick up magic weapons because our Rim Betty already have magic weapons. Instead, probably leave Astral Magic low and forgo that bless entirely. Don't want to dump magic because our go-to researchers aren't that good at researching, so losing even more on that is painful. And instead we can go Turmoil because our troops, Sloth, because our troops don't need a lot of resources, any of them. Only the giants cost resources, and we don't intend to recruit many giants. Luck can go either way, fortune, misfortune. I like going Order and some misfortune because, again, high recruitment point cost, so you want more of that, and misfortune hurts less if you have high Order, because less events. That does leave us with some points left over that we can further invest in a blessing or go Magic 3 to turbocharge our research. There is a good reason to turbocharge your research on this nation, because at Blood level 6, you have access to Illwinter, like all of the Norse-themed nations. Death 3? Oh, shit. Thank you, I didn't notice that. Right, so now we can't afford quite as much. Anyway. Like all Norse-themed nations in this game, or all the giant Norse-themed nations, you can cast Illwinter. This is a big fuck you, I win global, and it's only in Blood 6, so you can get this up pretty early. This is going to make the entire world colder the longer it's up. And it's also going to make independents attack random cold provinces outside of your dominion. And you'll be able to recruit additional Nephal giants, which are giant sacreds. And when it's active, you can cast Winter's Call to summon Nephal Jarls, which is a very strong super combatant chassis. So this is a big reason to go into Magic 3 as Niflheim. On top of that, you also have your alteration point buffs that are more useful to you than other nations because you are size 1. So, Luck, Area Effect 1. Normally this would hit 3 humans. For you, every cast of this hits 6 of your troops. So all point buffs basically have double value for Niflheim. And just having mages accompanying your armies, casting stuff like Luck and Protection will drastically increase your effectiveness. However, gold is always nice, because while your troops may be cheap, they're not free. Especially not your spellcasters. Jotun Gigjas are quite expensive. So I would probably prefer something like this for scales, with a mostly defensive bless, because the Veti hit hard enough as is. Some points of spares, let's just go Astral 2, then we can make Crystal Gear. Perfect. I think this is the primary way I'd play Vetiheim, but there is a second idea that I have revolving around the Bog Mummy. This lad, national discount too. He is an immortal. He's a size 4 immortal with good hit points. This guy can thug right out of the gate, and you don't care if you lose him because he's immortal. And he has blood and death access. Death we can't do that much with. We can do our blood bond again. Probably just do a death force so we can pick up some undying, really. How about our sacreds be a bit more tough? Then do our scales. Dump that production. Get some candles. And we want to give him, let's see here if I remember correctly. Wailing Winds Air, yes. Yeah, so the idea behind this build is to essentially have the immortal Bug Mummy go out of the gate and start thugging and taking down enemy armies with battlefield nukes, while you behind it still use pretty good scales to build up a strong economy to take on the rest of the world. This I would consider an anti-rush build. Your sacreds are not as strong, but the presence of an immortal Bug Mummy that can start casting strong spells right out of the gate allows you to counter a lot of enemy thugs and awake monsters that would otherwise ruin your day. This is, however, a little bit dependent on knowing what you're going to be up against, because you need to tailor these elemental access paths really depending on what you're facing. If you know someone is coming at you as Ulm, like for example, you'll want to put it into Astral, so you can start horror marking and eventually soul slaying their immortal vampires to keep them from respawning. So this is more of a opportunistic design, I'd say. And since the blitz I'm going into is blind, I don't know what everyone else is going to be playing. I don't think this is a great choice unless anyone tips their hand early and I can specifically build to counter it. Still though, it's not very vulnerable to a lot of things because you still have excellent scales and you can use that to recruit your good berserkers and sacreds. So he will get a save anyway. Okay, so that's 3 nations down, 1 to go. And the last one of my list is Atlantis. Late Age Atlantis is on my top 5 list of most powerful nations of all times in the game. I think they're on my number 2 or 3 spot, depending on how I feel at the moment. The reason for that is that they have excellent recruitable troops. Your basic seal hunters are kind of crap. They throw high damage harpoons that do net at that. So they're worth buying if just for that. Cheap as well. Snow warriors have a magical spear, which is very unusual for just regular chaff. So they're a bit expensive on the resources, but they also have ice protection, and already high built-in protection. So these are excellent troops. These are way too good troops for just being regular recruitables. And they only get better because then the next one has an ice glaive, which does ridiculous damage for a regular unit. These things will kill almost anything you throw them up against. Like invulnerability and ethereal, doesn't matter. Built-in magic damage. High protection, doesn't matter. Super high damage. The best counter against these guys is high defense skill. Or a repel check, I'd say. And they only get stronger the higher up the list you get. The ice warriors, even higher protection and defense skill. And a higher ice protection value, so they'll be even stronger in cold provinces. Ice guard, same but with a short sword. Don't like them. Short sword, not a great weapon. I prefer these ones with the ice glaive. Again, high protection, no shield, but that's okay because in Code 3, which you will have Code 3 in your Dominion, they're going to be sitting at a comfortable 24 protection. That's more than Olm's greatsword units with full plate. This is a super strong unit, and they're not sacred. These can match Vetiheim's sacreds, who are already super strong without a blessing. And then your actual sacreds are a bit of a letdown after that strong display, because they don't have any ice protection and they have low built-in protection. So these are the reason that you don't build for a blessing on Late Age Atlantis. You just recruit these when you don't have enough resources to recruit your much better Ice Guard. And then you have your big size 3s. They're an okay unit. Cheap on resources, so you can also recruit these in when you don't have the resources to recruit your good troops. And they have a very high damage halberd. And then your underwater troops is just standard Atlanteans from previous ages. They have poison barbs and poison spears. They're pretty good for fighting underwater. Can certainly beat Relia. And then unsleeping in underwater forts. These are your elite underwater units. Bit expensive, but pretty strong for what they do underwater. I'd say they're worth recruiting if you plan to fight underwater. Then on the commander side, you have your variety of mundane troop leaders. Nothing special about these. Ice Captain is the only one with really good leadership, and the Snow Captain has decent leadership. The Angakok is another reason why this nation is so strong. They're a 3-2 in the late age, where high access to magic paths is very rare, and they have a chance to cross path into air, water, earth, or death. So these can become water 5 or death 4. That's super rare in the late age to be able to go that deep into a path with just recruitable mages. These are fantastic, probably the best recruitable mage you can get in the late age. You pay for quality though. The gold cost is extremely high for these. Upkeep also kinda high, mitigated by being sacred. These you'll want to recruit on your capital every turn, when possible. And when you can't, or rather on other forts, you recruit these little Tungaliks, who are much worse spellcasters, but cheap upkeep researchers, who are decent at researching. And then underwater, you have Chandler Chiefs, 60 leadership, kind of bad leaders. Best you get underwater though. You get your Priest 2 Merciful Mothers. Yeah, pretty crap battle pages. You're correct, Scipio. Merciful Mothers, you get access to Priest level 2, which is good. Only underwater though, so until that you have to use Angakocks as priests, and they're very expensive priests compared to these. Then Unsleeping Consort is your good underwater troop leader and a low-level priest as well. Oh, and all of these have Void Sanity, so yay. And the Forgiving Father, which is yet another pretty good mage and significantly cheaper. This is the reason why you want to conquer underwater provinces, so you can start spamming out these good researchers and just overall good mages. They can commune you enough to cast some pretty scary stuff. So, with all that, this is not a blessed nation. This is a scales nation through and through. So, we want to go big on scales. I would probably do something along these lines with this nation. The only reason I would increase the magic paths of my pretender is if I want to go for some specific spells that my mages can't go for themselves. But I usually intend to go in prison with this nation because I'm not going to have a blessing. Why would my troops need a blessing when this exists? This is strong. This can beat almost anything. I can recruit these not just in my capital, but in any fortress. These can be spammed. That's incredible. So something like this, some swap arounds maybe, like swapping that for that so you can get luck 3 instead. I know that there's some people present in the chat right now that don't like going luck, but I do. Yes, I'll be getting to that, Scipio. So this is the first thing that I would do for this nation. Just a pure scales, focus everything on the national troops and mages. Now, as Scipio foretold, yeah, some really good events are luck 3 only, but that additional point in magic 3 also unlocks some good events. So it's a bit... Switch. Oh, are you not Scipio? I thought you were Scipio with Flying Land Duck. My bad. Who are you? Let's see, Atlantis. So, the second notion with this nation... oh dear. What was your name? Sorry, I've completely forgotten what your name was. Anyway, since you have good sacred mages, the next notion is to go for a mage blessing. And then there is 2 different schools of thought here. The first is to go Arcane Finesse to penetrate magic resistance. If Lemuria was in this game, this is what I would go for, because this means that the banishments are going to go through them more easily. Otherwise, Farcaster lets them sit further back in your lines and do spells a lot safer. I usually prefer Farcaster. And then, for this, you just do Reinvigoration, because mages use a lot of stamina. Very Christian, I see. And then the reason that you want Nature from the Monolith is that poison resistance is very important in the late age. We don't care about low light vision because all of our troops already have low light vision, so we'll take minor poison resistance as well and resilient. And the reason we want poison resist is that foul vapors is super common in the late age, and it's a very good way to make your mages take a bunch of damage and hate life. And so this prevents that. And this bless is aimed towards making sure that our Angakocks and our Tungaliks are just better at doing what they do in combat, and we can still pick up a pretty decent blessing with this. Yeah, so we can either go luck 3 or magic 3 with this. I think I prefer the Magic 3 because we have pretty good research, but we can really blaze through the research tree with Magic 3 as this nation. Oh, Christian name, I see, of course. Oh, I probably do a little bit more Dominion here. Dominion is important with this nation because you rely on your cold scales to make sure that your troops stay strong. These guys do not fare well in hot climates at all. You definitely want to make sure that you keep pushing your Dominion and keep pushing cold scales across the map. You benefit from there being a Vettiheim putting up Illwinter because you want there to be cold everywhere. So since they're both monoliths, let's name this one Caster Blast to differentiate them. Right, so there we have 2 sample pretenders for all of the nations I want to try, except for Ulm, because I think this is just the best way to play Ulm. It could be. If I have the opportunity to go neutral on Bless rather than neutral on Luck rather than negative luck, I'll take it though, because there's a difference between what events can happen on Misfortune 1 and Luck 0. It's a threshold, so to speak. So, let us quickly generate a little test map. Oh, don't worry about it. Oh, poison resistant from Mage Bless because mages die easily to things like Foul Vapors, which is a very easily cast spell in the late ages. A lot of these nations can very easily get access to the nature and water required to put up Foul Vapors, and that ruins your mage's day unless you have a poison resist. So that's just to safeguard against it. You are correct, Mr. Landuck. However, let's do the first test game with Ulm then, just to illustrate my point here. Let's do 4 AI or land. We'll put him up mighty. So the reason I like to take the Vampire Queen is that she comes preloaded with the paths we want, so we don't need to spend extra points unlocking them and raising them. And she is, on her own, a perfectly capable vampire thug. After she has summoned the initial vampires, she can go right out and start fighting the enemy. With no further additions. Whereas other rainbow mages can't really do that. Precision, it depends on what kind of mage bless you're going with. Let's see here. Precision. It's very cheap to add to a blessing. If you have air points left over, you can just add it in. Its value varies a lot depending on what kind of mages you have. For instance, air magic. Lightning bolts are perfect precision as far as I know. They don't miss. A lightning bolt when cast will just hit the tile it intends to cast. However, fire magic is very different because when you shoot a fireball, it relies on precision to hit where it wants to. And yeah, Middle-Age Ulm is great for precision because Iron Darts and Iron Blizzard actually have those spells here so I can show you. Earth. These rely on precision. They have a built-in precision of 5, so they're very low precision. And they shoot a bunch of darts, 30 plus. So you shoot a lot of darts at really low precision. So every point of precision that you add to a blessing when you intend to cast this spell adds a lot of extra chance to hit. So it really depends on the nation that you're playing and what spells they have access to. Let's load in the vampire, renaming aloud, leave everything else untouched. Yeah, exactly, add a choke on the shotgun. Yeah, Beritos does decently with a precision blast. I would say Beritos' priority should be on getting really good scales to really pump out their excellent Colossi troops and to get their blood economy going. And then whatever you can fit into the bless after that, you just slap in together. Here we go. Don't worry about it, Taciturn. It happens to all of us. So, first turn as Late Age Ulm. There is an argument to be made for not prophetizing turn 1 with your regular commander and instead recruiting a Hochmeister, because this is a more durable, stronger chassis. However, I don't think it's that worth it, because recruiting one of these drastically slows down anything else you could recruit because of the sheer resource cost of them. So I'm gonna prophetize turn 1. And goodness me, this is a strangely shaped map. Okay. Now, while the Rangers of Ulm are excellent troops, crossbows and axe attacks, I don't think they're reliable to use for your initial expansion. Rather, the infantry of Ulm and the Zweihanders are better for that. It's average water for 4 nations, I suppose. And this is the late age. Being able to go underwater is the most common in this age. So something like this for the first turn recruiting. And we want to get a member of the second tier as soon as possible so we can start blood hunting. And we'll fill out with a fortune teller. We'll set our research. So, since we're still Ulm and have access to Iron Darts, we'll want to make that a priority target, because it's a very strong combat spell, as well as construction. And, let's see here. I personally like to dip into blood magic, just so I can pick up Hellbind Heart at level 5. This is because Hellbind Heart is one of the safest ways to deal with enemy thugs and super combatants. It's just a charm effect that takes control of an enemy. If someone is trying to raid you with a thug and they don't bring any chaff to soak up this spell, just cast it on them and you steal the thug. It's now your thug. Costs only 1 blood slave per cast as well. And fatigue cost of 100, so you want to bring a couple of casters for it, in case they magic resist it. But very good anti-thug spell. I like it. And on the way there you get a bunch of other useful blood spells. Oh dear. Lemuria and Bogarus. Oh. Oh, that's not good. Right, so Ulm's starting army is Pikeneers and Infantry. Pikeneers, only upside of this unit is that they have a length 5 weapon. That's really good for repel checks. They only have 10 attack skill though, so their repel checks aren't amazing, to say the least. But we'll make use of what we have. So we'll just mix in, let's see, you have combat speed 7. You have combat speed 8 and 10, so we'll put them in the same group with these guys. Oh yeah, learning all the spells is a big part of the learning curve in this game. So we'll script these guys to fire archers, attack closest and attack closest. Put these slightly more to the side, so we can have these guys front and center. And our good old Adelwald will just be casting spells. And for now, good old Carl, poor misfortunate Carl, will just be researching as we keep recruiting. Let's get a couple more ranges this turn, just to fill out our ranks a bit more. So this might seem like an easy province. However, if we're getting the absolute lowest rolls of possible enemies, it could be up towards 30-ish Ictiids, and Ictiids should not be underestimated. Their net attack is very nasty. I'd rather pick a fight with some light and heavy infantries, I think. Yeah. Good capital start though, many connections. So the reason I'm mixing the great swords with the shield guys is that they have a roughly similar combat speed. So they don't get too separated while the much faster pikeneers run off on their own. And since the shield guys are slightly faster, they should catch the most of the fire, and my crossbowman for some reason ran forwards and died rather than shot. Weird. There we go. Some attrition, not too bad. Oh, the first time playing EA Tyrannog, casting Eternal Storm and then Wrathful Skies. Backfired amazingly. Did I set him to attack? Well, that's awkward. Whoopsie daisy. Let's not do that again. And we'll immediately send one of our blood hunters over here. Actually, now that we can start blood hunting, I should have started doing this from turn 1. I forgot. Oopsie daisy. Is to recruit our wolf herds. We can pump these 3 per turn. They're very good. And remember to actually move our spy. Yes. The national troops of Ulm aren't quite as strong as they were in the Middle Age, but they're still very solid and can, for the most part, handle expansion pretty reliably. Just because they're so sturdy, with high protection. But you are going to take a little bit more attrition than you did in the previous age. Heroic toughness, that's a good one to get. And these wolf herds we will immediately put to shift you summon allies. And recruit 3 more of them. They are going to be what keeps our blood hunters from making the population way too mad. Now that we actually have some troops, let's start getting some Black Templars in the mix. And while I do usually advocate expanding as quickly as possible, it's also important not to start losing expansion armies, because then you're just falling even more behind. So we're going to go back and pick up some more troops rather than keep going. And Carl here will start blood hunting. Oh, 9 blood slaves first time. Nice. Yeah, exactly. What population wouldn't be happy by a pack of savage wolves just hunting all dissidents down, right? No, not the wolves. But the knights. Okay, so now we're running out of our command slots, so we're going to make a little fucked up thing here and put the pikeneers in the same army as those guys. And the best use of a few number of knights is to put them on hold and attack rear off to the side, so they will run off and snipe the enemy commanders. And our crossbows will this time correctly be set to fire closest. And now we should be able to take on some Ictiids without any problems. Oh, 48 unrest. Let's go back and deliver blood slaves rather than keep hunting them. Hunting blood slaves when unrest is high is inefficient. You're just losing out on blood slaves, so it's better to just let them calm down a bit while you're waiting for your patrollers to come out than to keep blood hunting. Let's see how this went. Yeah, these nets are the reason that Ichthyods should not be underestimated. A netted troop will not fight back, they will just be hit to death savagely. Well, sadly no rear charge on the knights, but as you can see, even with just a blood surge active, very solid troops. 23 protection, high strength attack skill, defense skill. Just good heavy cavalry. And there we go. No attrition. That's the kind of expansion we like to see. And it's another province at 5,000, so that looks like it really should have a connection here, annoyingly. Oh well. Guess we're doing suboptimal expansion yet again. Oh, and it looks like we're neighboring Lemuria. So that means that I'm going to have to shift my plans because Lemuria needs to be dealt with ASAP. I should have made sure that Lemuria didn't spawn in the game because they're not going to be in the Blitz, but oh well. My bad, I guess. Yeah, the friendly neighborhood genocide ghosts. Transfer blood slaves. Useful hint for anyone playing a Blood Nation for the first time. Shift B tells them to blood hunt. Shift Z tells them to deposit all of their blood slaves into the lab. Can late age Alm cast flaming arrows? I mean, yeah, they can, but not natively. Look at these paths. These paths are garbage. And yes, Sir Mammoth, late age Lemuria and R'lyeh are banned in the Blitz. I don't see any reason why Hellfire in the Heart shouldn't work against horrors. Now let's call her Hellbind Heart. One person. Doesn't affect mindless. So if horrors are mindless, it won't work on them. I don't know if they are or not. That's beyond my knowledge right now. Scoop up some more troops for our army. They are not mindless. A recommended nation for learning blood magic. If you want to jump right into the deep end, play early age Xibalba, because they need blood magic to function at all. They will savagely get destroyed if you don't get the hang of blood magic quickly, because their national troops are utter garbage. Otherwise, late age Ulm, if you like the vampire flavor. This is very much a vampire themed nation. And early age or late age Mechtlin are also very big on blood. So those are the ones I would recommend for learning blood. Let's go up this way and try to go to war with Lemuria right away. Oh yeah, early age Lanka, also pretty good. But early age Lanka can be played completely ignoring blood magic by just setting up endless undead factories. So that's why I didn't recommend them. Now that unrest is down a little at least, we'll keep blood hunting, and soon we'll send out a guy with wolves when he is full up to start patrolling. Ah, look at these beautiful lines. Even though they're fucking destroyed by having these worthless pioneers in them. And the rear charge goes all the way to the rear. You're not mindless. Turns out Doomheroes just have a random chance to leave your service if you bound them to your will. Ah, there you have it. Right, so let's tell Carl the wolf herd here to go off in this direction and start patrolling. Light infantry and heavy infantry shouldn't be a too heavily defended throne. We'll go right for it because we want that farmland. Early age Abysia. Ah, well, if you like the flavor of Abysia, you could try playing Abysia throughout the Middle and Late Age as well. They keep mostly the same flavor, but they're changing a little bit with each age, usually going a little bit further away from super heavy infantry and more in towards blood. Let's go ahead and pick up a second commander. Let's grab a Hochmeister and a member of the second tier, some knights, Zweihanders, and a shit ton of rangers. Not that many rangers. There we go. Fire Randos can cast flaming arrows, so by casting Power of the Spheres, Phoenix Power, flaming arrows. Yes. You are correct. It's just... It's a pretty big investment, and you're only going to get 1 in 10 with Fire Random. I don't disagree, it's a good thing to do when you can do it. You shouldn't count on it, it's just... yes, that is the point of Doom Horrors. They come in when you trigger the Cataclysm and start destroying thrones until there's a winner. 70 units. Let's hope that AI Lemuria is not smart enough to summon their immortal thugs. This is why I hate level 1 Blood Hunters, because they suck. At least until you have a Sanguine Dowsing Rod. Oh, look at those greatswords just obliterating anything they engage. That's what I like to see. Same with the rear charge of knights. Look at that. Beautiful. And we have the Throne of Summer. Decent for us because we're not natively a cold 3 nation, so some heat will offset the penalties we get, so we'll go ahead and claim that right away. And it is a farmland with pretty good connections, so we'll recruit a scout to start building us a castle immediately. And they started with an awake raven of the underworld, it seems. Far from the most threatening pretender, so that's cool. Carl will patrol, and we'll start assigning wolves to another wolf herd, who will go to a second blood hunter, and we'll send out a third blood hunter. Give this guy his army. Attack rear, attack closest, and fire closest. And I'll go ahead and put them a little bit further back this time so the knights have more time to get into position, because we don't have as many Zweihanders to hold the front. Should be enough though. Should be. And here you can really see the power of the Citadel at work with all these troops we can recruit. And our terrible blood hunters, ugh. These Jaguar tribe are basically slaves from Mictlan, so they are garbage. Not even slightly threatening. Let's Still kill 2 rangers with their slings though. And it's a low population province, so we're not going to be blood hunting in that one. Ah, and we have Atlantis as well. Fantastic. The unrest, not so high in this one yet, and in this one I've started patrolling, so it should start going down shortly. Did I accidentally send 2 wolf herds? I sure did. That is awkward. Let's fix that. There we go. When we're recruiting troops as Ulm, we want to try to always cap out the production usage for resources, because they are the ones that we're going to be the most short of. So I want to use all of them. Even though it's Amazons and Pegasus riders here, I'm going to try to secure this choke point first. And you go back home. And let's start going up to Hergendorf to blood hunt there as well. Give some wolves to Lothar. And move up. And Virbius will construct a... we're out of gold. Never mind, so he will construct a palisades next turn. Yeah, the reason they're all doing so poorly is just because they're blood one. Yeah, exactly. Wolves have a bonus to their patrol value, so they patrol to keep down unrest while the blood hunters hunt blood, which brings up unrest, so they do a little equilibrium thing. Sadly, our blood hunting is kind of going to suck until we can start summoning vampires to do it more efficiently. Don't kill them. Good, the poison ran out. Ooh, an enchanted sword. Nice. So, these Pegasus riders are very threatening in the hands of player and not threatening at all in the hands of an AI, because they just sit there using their short bow, instead of doing a attack rear flying charge as a sacred unit. Yeah, it paints a kind of grim picture for anyone living there. That is true. And that's the retreat. Yeah, that's the whole theme of Ulm. A nation ruled by vampires with wolves patrolling the woods at night, taking down the troublemakers and letting the vampires feast. It's a very cool theme. Now recruiting thaumaturgs. That's not good. I don't particularly want to go to war with Lemuria. I don't have any ready solutions for their spectral troops. Magic weapons is not a thing I have right now. A problem that won't exist in a multiplayer, of course, but here I am facing that problem right now. Heavy cavalries, let's avoid that. And Bogaroos as the last AI. Okay. We should start recruiting black priests if we're fighting Lemuria. Yeah. And we have a population of 10k over there, so we'll send over a blood hunter. There shouldn't be any problems at all. Yeah, you can see even in melee these rangers are just excellent. And there we go. Throne of Law has been claimed. Interesting. And we're doing quite poorly on the blood hunting front, unfortunately. And we have our pretender, good. That will help quite a lot because she's actually a good blood hunter. So we'll put her to work right away. Looks like we're going to have to expand into heavy cavalries either way right now, though. Let's put him behind the rangers and hope for the best. We'll go pick up some more troops before we pick a fight with Mr. Spooky Scary Ghost Neighbor. Site searching will be more important after I get my vampire counts up. Because the needs I have for my gems is pretty much non-existent at the start. Getting the blood slaves to get my vampires online is far more important than any amount of magic gems right now. Blood sites are very rare, but the ones that do exist are quite good. So I wouldn't recommend searching with a blood mage. Instead, I would advocate for a spell called Bone of Blood. I will show it to you after this fight. Look at those greatswords just eating a cavalry charge, dishing it right back out. Those brave lads. Right, here we go. Blood level 2 only costs 5 blood slaves, which is quite cheap for a site searching spell, and it has a range of 5, and since you can mass up blood slaves quite easily, this is how I prefer to site searching blood. Just one turn, take 10 blood mages, quickly site search all your lands with this spell, boom, done. She will blood hunt here. And here's another little trick for using blood hunting. Let's see if I can remember. If you do capital V, V for victory, you transfer all the blood slaves in the province to your selected commander, and then he can go off and deliver them back to your capital. So your blood hunter can keep blood hunting without any disruption. Ah, here comes the blood slaves. Excellent. Enemy crossbowmen against our crossbowmen. Sadly, they have the numbers on us. Might become a little bit of a rough fight. Yeah, our troops routed. And push that army a bit further than it can actually take. Almost wiped out the province though, so we can just walk right back in and take it. And Bogarus declares war on us. Unfortunate. Where's that? Dobbin. Right there on the border. Oops. Well, that is obviously bad for multiple reasons. The least among which is that we now have to go deal with that rather than fight Lemuria. If this was a multiplayer game, you would do anything to kill Lemuria first. Even if it involves getting peace with Bogarus here with the unfriendly borders, because you have to deal with Lemuria. They are just too big of a threat to leave alone. 100%. If Lemuria isn't killed by their immediate neighbors, chances are they're just going to win the game. They're that big of a threat. Yeah, he's got enough troops to take that. There we go. Oh, I moved the wrong one. Whoops. Here we go. Our knights take the knight charge, nice and easy. There we go. Black knights are just superior to independent knights. And Bogarus keeps pushing into our big, strong, prepared army, which should be able to take on their shitty black hoods quite easily. Bogarus is a pretty interesting nation. It completely disregards all the qualities of Rus from previous ages to become a blood nation instead. And the ghosts found our scouts. There we go, palisades up. We'll have this guy build a lab right away. This guy build a better fortress. There we go. Vampire Queen go home with the slaves. Alright, just blazing through the turns here. This isn't supposed to be a full-on game after all. This is a test and theory crafting stream. So I'm just going to go far enough in Ulm to summon my first vampire and then switch over to the next nation on the list. Oh, good patrol turn. But this is the real strength of Ulm in the early game, being able to just have a big army of very solid troops. And just sweep out with that, and then while your army is doing the fighting, you have your blood hunters at home collecting up a big sum of blood slaves so you can pump out sanguine heritage and start getting immortal vampire thugs. Which I will now show off. Yeah, so here we go. Every time you cast Sanguine Heritage, you get one of these 7 unique vampire counts. Already showed them in the Inspector, but these are fantastic. These are the whole reason why this nation works. Immortality 1 turn means that you can just send these flying thugs out raiding all the time. And they can go pretty far. Not that far. Especially not on a large map like this with big provinces. What's the map move here? Let's see. Oh, my bad. I forgot to remove his little... There we go. Yeah, so as you can see, Arthur here can fly quite the distance in any direction. So this is basically what you do with Ulm. You use your excellent human troops as a front line, and then you summon vampires to pick up the blood hunting and start doing immortal flying raiding behind them. And then you just transition into full blood economy, summon more vampires, demons, and what have you. It can be quite annoying to deal with because it's a very versatile nation. Surprisingly so when their national mages are so bad. But enough of Ulm. Let's move on to another nation on our docket. Let's do the same setup. There's going to be somewhere between 4 and 8, depending on how many players sign up. All land. Mighty, mighty, mighty. This time we'll do Vettiheim, because I think they deserve a little bit more notice for how good they are. And we will do our Region Blood Bond Bless first. Dormant. Let's turn that back to Dawn 5 capture, there we go. Let the random map generation do its work. Taking a little moment this time, to say the least. There we go. Ah, another unique shape. This time in a horizontal stretch rather than a vertical one. So, since this is a pretty heavy bless build, we want to try to recruit as many of our Rimvetti as possible. And even though they're low in resource cost, we can... Oh, wow. This is an awful capital. 2 connecting provinces? Yeesh. Oh, that's bad. Alright, well, let's start recruiting Gigias right away. And have our first little dude become a prophet, even though he sucks. And I was the only one to prophetize turn 1. Interesting. Let's see, we have our archers, we have our spearmen. Now, with Vettiheim, you'll want to put your Rimvetti a bit away from your other troops, because they have a shill aura. And yes, your other troops have code resistant 5, but that means that every now and then exploding dice are going to get through and they're going to get fatigued. Yeah, exactly. Great short point. So you don't want them all stacked together in the same spot. In this case, I think we'll have these guys in the center and these Rimvetti coming in from the side. No, not guard commander. Hold their attack closest. And these guys will attack closest and fire closest respectively. At least we don't have the worst provinces to expand into, so that's something. And we'll keep trying to recruit as many Jotun Gigias as possible. Max fatigue is same for everyone, it's just 100. When you reach 100 fatigue you go unconscious, when you reach 200 fatigue you start taking damage. Looks like I'm gonna have to script my priest to actually cast Divine Blessing earlier, because he's casting a bunch of other buff spells first. Well, not that it matters right now, we don't have any blessings active yet. And they actually routed, wow. Seriously guys? Amazing. Ah, a monastery. This is a very good magic site, or random site I should say, because neutral Holy 2 priests is quite rare. Yeah, you're right, I'm leading too many troops, or too many squads rather. Let's go back and pick up some more Rim Betty and fix that. Now we can at least recruit up to our Holy Point limit, which is quite valuable. Let's fill up with some Gigias and Berserkers. Now, while Vettiheim is a blood nation, I don't think it's that important to rush into blood as it is with Ulm, because you don't need it that much. Instead, going into Alteration to pick all of the good point buffs that you can do with your mages, protection and all that nonsense, as well as Conjuration, so you can start outputting the Brood of Garm, which is a very good Sacred Wolf summon. Oh hey, Goldeman, nice. Okay, let's just leave these archers at home for now, because they're not really contributing that much. Let's be honest. Another Jotun Gigja and some Berserkers. It depends on the HP of the mage even. Low HP mages can absolutely kill themselves casting high fatigue spells. Yeah, so here's a showcase of how squishy our regular troops can be. And hopefully of how good our Rim Betty are, even without a blessing. As they're standing toe-to-toe with humans and getting cut down. Because I might have bit off a bit more than I can chew. Yep. How many chews was that? Ugh. And we get it. Wow. Fucking Ronin coming in and attacking us here. Jeesh. That's rough. A large group of Ronin tried to seize control of the province, yep. Yeah, that puts us in a bit of a rough position here. You'll have to take my word for it that usually when you don't get an absolutely abysmal start like this, Vettiheim does quite well for expansion. Here though, not so much in this particular instance. Oh well, we even retreated in there and got our commander killed. Let's get a new one. But you have to be prepared for this kind of stuff to happen in a multiplayer game too. Even if you're using a map generator like Map Nukes, you just have to be ready to get a shitty start now and then. And this is bad, but it's not completely insurmountable. Even when you're down on your luck and you're sitting there at turn 6 with 3 provinces, you can still come back into the game, because the biggest advantage perhaps in a multiplayer game is to be an underdog. People are usually more inclined to attack those that they perceive to be a threat. So if someone is your neighbor and they see weak little Vettiheim, they're either going to attack you outright because they think they can kill you and take your shit easily, Or they're just going to leave you alone and focus on a more dangerous opponent because they don't want to be stuck fighting you when someone else attacks them in the back. Maybe go back and get better luck skills. No, I think not. So for now, we'll just wait, even though it's painful to do nothing. Throwing away more armies would be even more foolish. And throwing away it would indeed be, because I know it's quite a lot of Ronins over there, despite what the preview says, and Ronin are not weak. So we're actually going to take one more turn of recruitment before going anywhere. Conveniently completing our alteration research. So with that, we can start scripting our mages to do moss body and protection each. And this might be a... oh, you can't do moss body because you don't have that path. I just do protection then. This is a bit inefficient because we're losing mage turns on it, but when you're this far behind, you just really need to make sure that your expansion succeeds. You can't afford to fall too far behind after all. Now, sadly, I forgot to move my Gigyas out, so they're just going to buff themselves to begin with, before they start buffing my actual troops. Because they always buff the biggest concentration of HP first. Thankfully, we have a large enough critical mass of Rimvetty to just slow down the enemy with cold and kill them. Especially the shitty Ronin. Now, let's fix this scripting. We'll have them right up here in the mix with all the shitty goblins. Because we want them to buff the goblins as well as themselves. Ah, and there goes our prophet. Shit, so we can get a new prophet. We'll get another commander for that rather than this one. This guy. Right, now that they're mixed in with the goblins, they instead move forward instead of casting immediately. That's annoying. Yeah, there, now they started casting buffs on these guys. So it takes them a little while to buff themselves first, but eventually they start buffing your tiles of 6 goblins each. And make your 6 goblins all that better. You just have to be ready for them to be selfish first before they actually do something useful. Let's just tell them to cast it a bunch of times to make sure that they actually target my goblins. There we go. And Rage in here will become a prophet and will keep recruiting more Rimvetty. And normally we wouldn't be this strapped for resources because we wouldn't have 2 fucking connectors to our capital. Which is ludicrous. Spawn like this. Awful. Awful stuff. But you live with what you get. Simple as. By the way, behind us we're just amassing more of our sacreds, who are now getting properly point buffed. There we go. Very nice, look at that, 25 protection, beautiful. It is possible to get a one connector with a default map generator, yes. That is why a lot of players in the multiplayer community prefer to use the map nuke map generator, because it gives you a minimum of 4 connectors to your capital. Guaranteed. But some people don't like using it. I personally think it looks quite ugly, so I completely understand why. Here we go. And in multiplayer, even if you don't like the location of a fort, you want to start getting up a fort outside of your cap circle as soon as you can. Because if you don't, there is a big risk that you're going to get rushed down, have your capital sieged, and just die. Nothing you can do about it. He'll breach for now, but we can get more troops. So you need to start getting a second fort up very quickly when you're playing multiplayer to prevent yourself from dying to rushes. Because it just takes 1 troop sitting on your capital and you can't recruit anything otherwise. Yeah, look at these salty little lads. No blessing, just trundling about. Beautiful. So that's why we recruit a little independent commander and have him build a fort. Do note that having an independent commander alone in a province like this is basically screaming, I'm building a fort, if a opponent sees you doing this. So they're going to try to raid you. Yeah, being able to place your starting city would be nice, but if wishes were horseshoes, or whatever the saying goes. And our deity has come online, which means that our Rimveti are now significantly more powerful. Oh yes. I should have scripted some of these to actually bless them. There we go, there comes the blessings. Ah, look at that, regeneration and blood bond. Now these little murder goblins are almost immortal. Now let's fix this. Delete those, cast, blast 3 times. And you too. There we go. And let's demonstrate just how strong Rimveti are with a blessing. Poor example here with a small army, but oh well. I'd be surprised if we lose any of them at all in this fight, as they just mulch through the opposition with multiple magic attacks, high damage magic attacks at that, and regenerate all damage taken because it spreads out so evenly between the goblins. Lost 1 berserker, not even a sacred unit. And here we have another pretty easy fight. Somewhat overkill for Rimveti now. If I was being optimal about this, I should be taking these Rimveti and splitting up about 5 of them to each Gigya to do her own expansion with. Not this one, let's do this one is casting blessing. And then have all of these go off in different directions. So these guys start going back, she goes over there and she goes over there. Now this is probably going to be a bit too hard because that's heavy cavalry province. But hey, let's just try anyway. For fun. This is a test game after all, so let's just see how they do against vastly superior odds, right? And here we'll go and pick a fight with a bunch of troops. Just to get to see them in action against really overwhelming odds. Yeah, this is pretty overwhelming. Probably also pretty bad because it's heavy cavalry, so they're gonna snipe my commander. So we can't really see these singular 6 goblins in one tile, proving their worth. Well, they ate the cavalry charge like a champ. Almost. Yeah, a bit too many heavy cavalry for that to work. Yeah. And here, oh, it's just a PD. That's not even our PD, it's just neutrals. Right, here's a more reasonable fight. Small group of Rimveti, vastly outnumbered. And chewing up the enemy heavy infantry. This isn't an easy nation to play, but when you get the hang of it, it's a very fun nation to play. Because having all these little goblins running around killing things many times larger than them is very satisfying. And here we have our other way too small expansion party against lizards this time. So no cavalry charge, let's see how they do with that. Not fantastic. Yeah, those high damage tridents also do quite a number, even with the HP distribution. So you can't split them up too much, but you can split them up a bit. This army here is probably your optimal expansion size, about 20 units. And if you have a capital that doesn't suck absolute donkey dick, like this one, you should be able to get maybe 3 or 4 of these parties out by turn 10. And this time it's turn 16 and we have a singular one. So, yeah. Let this be an example of what not to do. Anyway, with that, I think I'm going to call it for tonight. I'm gonna leave the testing of the other nations for another night before I completely blow my throat, because I've been talking for about 8 hours today or something with Jake's game as well. So for now, I do wish you all a very nice evening. And yes, Sir Mammoth, that's a good point, to use 18 of them for 3 squares. Exactly. But I wish you all a very nice evening, and I hope that you all have found at least a little bit of entertainment from learning about these nations. Have a good one.